Very good. All right, we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. If we could have a roll call, please.
Morris.
Yes.
Edwards. Here. Woods.
Present.
Lee.
Here.
Cottle.
Here.
Casanova.
Present.
Aiken.
Here. Great. This is our November 2nd Town Council meeting. We want to, obviously from the dais here, want to thank everyone that came out tonight. Our first order of business is our invocation, and if we could all stand, where Councilman Cottle gives us the words of wisdom here.
Father, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. I want to thank you for each person in the community that came out tonight. I pray that you'd help us to conduct the town's business in an ethical manner. I pray that you give us wisdom, help us to make the right decisions. And Lord, I just pray that everything that's said and done tonight would be pleasing. Thank you again for each one that came. In your name we pray. Amen.
If we could remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you very much. Just a couple additions to our agenda. We're going to add into, after agenda item B, insert Greg Scott has a presentation. Without objection, we'll add that into there. And also, if without objection, I'd like to put the consent agenda as line item number 6, and then our agenda items is number 7. Flip those. All right. Our next item is our citizens' time, our chance to hear from our public. If you could just come up to the mic and give your name and your address, your locality, that would be great for the record. But this is our chance to hear from everyone.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Leaks. My name is Nicole Zimnock. I live at 6692 Comanche Court in Haymarket, Virginia. The reason for me speaking with the council today is to discuss the Hanover property. Not only do I sit as a chairperson for the ARB, I'm also a resident of Haymarket. And one thing that I would like to ask the council to take into consideration is that as a town resident, we all want the same things for our community. We want a place where we can take our children, where we can have a good time, where we can gather and have activities and fundraisers and promote the history of this town, as we also would love to do. One thing that concerns me, not only as an ARB member, but also as a town resident, is for us to embrace the fact that we speak so highly of our history and the history of this town. And we want to preserve that. I do know that it's come to and been placed on the table to remove both properties from the location. One thing I would like to ask you is to take into consideration that history that we so strongly talk about, the thing that we want to be remembered for, and thought of in the town of Haymarket. When I took the position with the ARB, I was told so highly of how our history was important to us. And when I made my decision for the Hanover property, I put that into consideration. Yes, there are 2 buildings there that some seem to feel as though shouldn't belong there any longer. But if we want to embrace and hold the history of Haymarket, I believe even leaving one of those facilities there and utilizing that could be beneficial to us. Think of the different activities that not only the Girl Scouts, but the Boy Scouts can learn more about the history of Haymarket and have that as a structure to even embrace and discuss with other people, even non-Girl Scout members, people that are just here visiting the town, as we have so many do when they come to visit the museum. This is something that we could use to embrace, not only to just say, oh, it's a structure that we rebuilt or we restructured or we got it out and we refixed it up, but it's a part of Haymarket. It's something that we can look back on and cherish. Some of those funds that we would be using to demolish the buildings, to reconstruct the buildings, could be used elsewhere in our town. Not saying that we have a lot that we have to fix, but we have things that we could fix up. We could utilize those funds in so many ways. What I'm asking for you to, if you would please, take into consideration that we all put in our thoughts, our ideas, and the things that we thought that we could beneficially use for this town. When you make your decision tonight, I hope that all of you would think of what one facility or even two of the facilities could do for us, just to keep the spirit of our history going. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Evening, council members. I hope you don't mind if I read for brevity's sake. Excuse me. For the past 12 years, I've had the pleasure of...
Yeah.
Bob Weir, 6853 St. Paul Drive, Haymarket. For the past 12 years, I've had the pleasure of working with scores of elected and appointed officials as well as members of town staff, often having vastly disparate sets of interest, agendas, and knowledge bases. As a result, I found myself both on the prevailing side and losing side of many issues. That being said, rarely did I feel that the best interests of the town as a whole were not honestly represented by those in agreement or disagreement with mine own views. Sadly, that is no longer the case. Thus, after a dozen years of service to the town, I must respectfully submit my resignation from the Town of Haymarket Planning Commission, effective immediately. To remain on the Planning Commission would constitute tacit approval of the questionable actions, ethics, and machinations of a minority of the town's elected representatives, as well as certain executive officers of the town. Instead, I've elected to repudiate them. First and foremost, it has become obvious that some on the town council desire to transfer the responsibilities and authority vested upon them when they took the oath of office to certain unelected members of the town staff, as memorialized in a poorly considered and drafted proposed amendment to the town charter. To those individuals, I would suggest that if they're not willing or capable of fulfilling those responsibilities, they should immediately step down from the offices to which they were elected. Continuing to pursue the course that has been embarked on will result in the town council responsible for little more than parties, proclamations, and propaganda. More troubling, however, are the numerous incidents I have observed over the past 16 months that can only be characterized as the abuse of the powers of elected office, the authority of the town, and that of town and state law enforcement authorities, all to further select personal agendas and vendettas. In the past few months alone, I've become aware of frivolous, if not fraudulent, anonymous complaints made to a state law enforcement agency regarding a town business. I should note that said anonymous complaints were not truly anonymous, as the law enforcement agency has quite openly disclosed and documented the identity of those who initiated the complaints. Similarly, some among the council have initiated ordinance changes specifically designed to injure existing town businesses and individuals, often with unintended consequences. One need look no further than the poorly conceived outdoor events ordinance for a prime example. Conversely, while no effort and expense has been spared to pursue those personal agendas, many issues with a potential for a direct impact on the residents and businesses of the town have been ignored or gone unaddressed. The most recent example being repeated attempts by Susan Shaw, the project manager for the Transform 66 outside the Beltway, to meet with the town's mayor to discuss the location of the commuter lot that had been proposed for a site off Antioch Road, or alternately on the Gotham parcels at the northeast corner of the I-66 Route 15 interchange. Those attempts proved futile prior to the CTB vote on the preferred alternative adopted last week. In addition, although I have had frequent differences of opinion with the town's legal counsel and contract professionals over the years, I have never doubted their competence or professionalism. That, too, is no longer the case. To be clear, I have the utmost confidence in the clerk's office and believe that the town is truly fortunate to have perhaps the most highly qualified and competent town clerk in the Commonwealth. I cannot say the same for the rest of the town staff. I have no confidence in the town's current legal representation and truly question the competence of the current town manager, as well as the motivations of several professional and law enforcement employees. This all comes at a real price to the residents and businesses of the town, a price that diminishes the opportunity for the town to accomplish long-range goals and promises to the residents. In the short 16 months this council has held office, the administrative budget for the town has doubled, as has the number of employees and appointees. Similarly, the annual expenditure for legal counsel is more than double the town's historic high water mark. Additionally, numerous contractors have been hired at considerable expense to provide a work product of questionable value and need. The strategy adopted by this council has resulted in the needless expenditure of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars that might have been better used to further the interest of the town's residents and businesses. In order to fund those expenses, the town has drawn down the substantial reserves that were in place at the time the present council took office and will prove unsustainable in the future absent a significant increase in the taxes or the tax base. I'm personally offended by this fiscally irresponsible behavior and find it an anathema to the fiscally prudent measures adopted by the previous town councils and an affront to the elected representatives of the past decade who took great pains to ensure that the present council inherited a fiscally solvent town. Much has been made of the plans for the future and long overdue capital improvements. I doubt that any, other than those initiated and funded by previous councils, will come to fruition under the present circumstances and leadership. Respectfully, Robert B. Weir. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment, Mr. Weir. You could give the clerk a copy of that. Thank you.
Dottie Leonard, 14801 Washington Street. I've lived in the town of Haymarket for 44 years, and tonight I wasn't planning to speak, but after that I couldn't sit still. I want to tell all of you that I am so proud and impressed with what you've done in the 18 months you've been in Haymarket. I know when the mayor 2 generations back left, we had a grant from Tom Davis, a federal grant to finish the brick sidewalks. It was never done, and that grant was never used. After they'd been in office for, I believe he says, 7 years, you guys came in and finished it. And even though some of the engineering was poor, you got it done right. You cleaned up behind the bad planning or bad engineering. And I, for one, am grateful, and I will stand up and tell the whole town that was a bunch of buck. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Leonard, for your comments there.
My name is Armin Gadori. I live at 7523 Rio Grande Way. That's in Gainesville, Virginia. And although I'm here with my family, we're residents of Gainesville, Virginia, I consider myself a resident of Haymarket. We've lived here for 10 years. I consider the town's basically equivalent, except for my occasional trips to Lowe's and my daughter working at Uncle Julio's. They go to school in Haymarket. We go to church in Haymarket at Park Valley. And more importantly, my wife has worked at the Haymarket Food Pantry for about 3 years now in the equivalent of about a full-time job. She is there all the time. And if I could just ask everybody that's here, is there anybody here who has never heard of the Haymarket Food Pantry? Just for the record, there's nobody here that's never heard of the Haymarket Food Pantry. Is there anybody here tonight that has never heard that the town of Haymarket wants the Haymarket Food Pantry to leave its current location?
Armin, if you could just please address the council with all your questions or comments. And
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So my understanding is that the Haymarket Food Pantry is here. My wife volunteers there regularly. She's sitting here tonight. My daughters are here tonight. They've volunteered as well, and I know that there are other very frequent volunteers at that food pantry. My understanding is also that it is the intention of this town to remove the Haymarket Food Pantry from its current facility. My only point is this. There's a few things that this town does exceptionally well, and a few things that it's known for outside of its current boundaries. One of those things is the Haymarket Food Pantry. It feeds people in desperate need outside of its own boundaries, and it's well known for that, and it's well reputed for that, and it's a beacon of light for this facility, or excuse me, for this town. My only endorsement to you is this. that if you intend to remove the Haymarket Food Pantry from that building, you need to provide, as a town, another place for it to be, because it's the Haymarket Food Pantry, not some private sponsored event, not some sponsored facility. It's the Haymarket Food Pantry, and it's something that the entire community rallies around, from church communities to private citizens to everybody. And that's my only request this evening, is that you look at it in that light. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for your comment, sir.
Hi, Rebecca Bear, 14977 Cheyenne Way. When I saw the Harover pantry on the Harover property and the pantry on the agenda, I decided to stop by. We have had at least 4 public hearings in the last 10 to 12 years over the Harover property. Same thing's always said: town-owned, public use, green space. And it's always kind of been the standard process in town. When we talk about demoing a historical building, there are public hearings just to hear about that. The forum that happened, somehow the groups were given 2 different sets of instructions on how to gauge what they wanted to see at the Harover property. So I do agree that, yeah, there should be another public hearing, but it needs to be more specific to, do the town residents want either of those buildings demolished? My second issue was where I saw that there is a charter amendment going out or in the works. There hasn't been a public hearing for that either. So I saw where thousands of dollars in legal expense has been spent on a charter amendment you don't even know if the residents of the town of Haymarket have any interest in whatsoever. Those are the only points I wanted to cover tonight. So,
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Robert Day, live in the Green Hill Crossing community. And I just want to say, number one, I just want to say that I am very proud and glad of the current town council. I fully support town council in your decisions, and I'm glad that we have the current town council body that we have today. So just want to start with that. Furthermore, I do want to say that I'm a member of the ARB, and we put together a proposal to keep the 2 houses on the Harover property. And I just want to say that when I started with the ARB, I was and still am a new citizen of Haymarket. When I came on board with the ARB, you know, it's an old building, tear it down. It really didn't concern me very much. In the past year that I've been on the ARB, I've come to appreciate the eclectic town. It has been explained to me on numerous occasions how most of the buildings were destroyed after the Civil War. There's only a couple left. Then we have, again, still not expert, but you got the Hullfish House and the Harover and some other place, Dossum. You know, again, still not expert in all that, but I understand that part of the history of Haymarket is that we have a variety of structures, a variety of buildings. There's no 2 houses like this in Haymarket. Once you demolish them, they're gone. You're not going to put them back. Is it the right decision to get rid of them? We thought not. We thought we should keep them. There were some uses that we thought they could be used for, and again, ARB as a whole believes that they should be there. That was our recommendation. And again, I just want to say one more time, when we first started looking at the Harover property and the houses, and we went through them, when I first was going up there, in my mind, I didn't say it, but in my mind, I was like, old buildings, you know, they're ugly. Once we went through them, we had what's his
Building
name?
inspector.
Yes, he
Yeah.
went through it, gave us some recommendations, told we what we could do, couldn't do, what the possibilities were. And, you know, my mind was changed at the end of that walkthrough and the different discussions of what we could do with that property. And I would like you to reconsider your position. If it is to tear it down, I'd just like you to reconsider that one more time and see if there is some way you can use them and keep them.
Okay.
So,
All right. Thank you, Mr. Day.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chuck Carnahan, 6654 Hunting Path Road. Ms. Edwards, welcome back. Thank you for your willingness to serve. My comments are about the town center plan and your Harover plan. I have no opinion either way on what to do with the houses. Don't care. As many of you know, I've long petitioned this and previous councils about having a plan. And I'll tell you what, I'm thrilled there's a plan in the works, that something is finally happening, that there's a plan. Appreciate your time and efforts into it, the town staff's efforts into coming up with this plan. We've needed this for 15 years since we bought this property in here. However, I've watched all your videos. I've been here throughout the summer to a bunch of the meetings, and the one piece that's missing in all of this is a discussion of how do we pay for it. Nobody has talked about that yet. You have a conceptual drawing of $1.8 million. How do we pay for that? I don't know what your total is now on this project. How do we pay for it? You remember in that town forum that we did, the number 2 line item that came up on that list was, how do we fund it? How do we pay for it? So I haven't seen that discussion happen, and I encourage you, you've got to have that discussion, and you've got to come up with a way to do it, or your plan is doomed to failure, because you have to have it in there. Next May, the next sitting council can just throw the whole thing out and say, hey, it's too expensive, we can't afford it, we can't do it in there. I think you have a fiduciary responsibility. If you're going to put forward this plan, you have to have a funding mechanism for it. I don't know what that is. I have some ideas. I'd be happy to share those with you out there. But I think, I beg of you, please, just don't forget this is a vital aspect of any plan, is you've got to have a way to pay for it. And remember, you know, my personal thing is, me as the taxpayer, I don't want to pay for it in there. So, you know, whoever pays for it. Now, if I can switch and put my hat on as the president of the Longstreet HOA for a moment, I want to just publicly thank you guys for Chief Noble and Councilman Morris, who have worked with our association and brought up the discussion before it happens of how do we deal with traffic once that bridge reopens. We get all kind of cut-through traffic through our neighborhood. Chief came and met with us at our meeting last month. He had some great suggestions, some great ideas. We're implementing some of those. With his assistance, we'll be able to do that also. Also to thank you for Brian and Joe Barbeau. They've been working kind of behind the scenes. Maybe you guys aren't aware. We have a couple easement issues within our property that we have found that we as an association can't enforce this easement. So we look to Joe and Brian acting as the town's fire marshal to address the easement issue for us. We also have another house that has some construction going on that we're a little suspicious of what's actually happening in that house, and they've been great about reaching out to those homeowners and trying to address it and figure it out. So, and then finally, just thank you all for your service to this town. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. Well, we do, actually, for citizens' time, we do.
That's all right, I'll be quick. No,
So,
I just want to point out that from a budgeting standpoint,
Yeah, exactly. I think Ms. Edwards would like to speak, and typically, we don't even allow our own council to speak until everyone had a chance to speak, so.
Okay,
I'm
so
going to go
I'll be
ahead.
quick.
No,
So I just want to point out about the budget.
You need to sit down, sir. Please.
You're out of order.
You really are. If we could let Mrs. Edwards come up to speak, and then I'll go through the dais here to see if we want to have someone come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to put on my
my resident hat now.
There you go.
Susan Edwards. I live at 6938 Little John Court. And I would like to speak about the Harover property, what we hope will become Harover Park. Harover Park is an important project for this town and should be approached with careful consideration and regard to the strategic plan and needs of the residents. If this council plans to move in a direction that is in opposition to the strategic plan, the plan needs to be revised and public hearings scheduled for resident input. The council needs to hold themselves to the same standards that we hold our property owners, businesses, and residents to, and adhere to our council-approved strategic plan that holds preservation of properties in its highest priority.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Edwards. Is there anybody else that hasn't spoke to the council that would like to come up and speak at this time? No one else? I'll entertain if the council wants a second guest to come up and speak. Normally, I think our rules we have that already established.
I have no issue with a second appearance.
Okay. Mr. Vasanella?
I think he had his opportunity to speak and should have spoke at that time.
Councilman Cottle?
I mean, if he really wants to speak, as long as he's brief, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Councilman Woods?
If he's brief, I'll hear him again.
Yeah.
Mrs. Edwards?
I have no objection as long as he's brief.
I have no objection, sir.
Okay.
I'll be brief.
Aaron? Yes, sir.
Okay, I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to point out when it comes to budgeting, okay, because I've heard a little bit about budget and making sure there's enough to build you all some new offices and stuff. I just want to point out that this is the Haymarket Food Pantry, okay? If you want to remove them from their current facility, I would suggest that if we want it to be the Haymarket Food Pantry, that we include in the budget a certain amount for them to have a place in Haymarket to be able to distribute food to the needy, rather than have tidy offices for you all, okay? So I just want to ensure that it's on the record that people in the community would like to have included in the budget a set amount, not just a donated old ratty facility that you can't even use the bathroom in, but a nice place for us to be able to distribute food. Okay, all of these people are volunteers. They donate their time. It's not really a budget issue. Okay, it's a matter of having a place where people can donate their time, take donations from others to give to the needy. Okay, and I think it trumps fancy development buildings.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for your comments, sir. Okay. Moving on to our next item is our public hearing, and this will be on page 2. Pardon me? No, that was number 6 to 7. Or number 5. We'll go ahead and open our public hearing for special use permit 2015-0611. Sure. Sir, there's no motion on the floor. I'm not sure where you're, we have Robert's rules here, and there's no motion from the floor. We've got an active agenda here, so we'll go ahead and open our public hearing for the special use permit. If anybody would like to speak in favor or against our special use permit. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close our public hearing for special use permit 2015-0611. Our next item is number 6, which is our consent agenda. Is there any items that the council would like to take off to be voted on separately? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the consent agenda as is.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Second by Councilman Edwards. Discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Cottle?
Yes.
Casanello?
Aye.
Aiken?
Yes.
All right, great. All right. We're going to move up to our agenda items, which will be the special use permit. I think we have, Marchand, if you'd like to speak, and I think there's a draft motion as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, a special use permit for an in-home business at Southern Crossing. I did want to make one minor amendment to your draft motion. Draft motion 1A refers to a narrative dated April 4th, 2014. That should be dated June 11th, 2015. Other than that, should you so choose, the application is ready for action.
Okay. At that time, I'll entertain a motion for this special use permit.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Town Council approve SUP number 20150611, Crave Suites, for an in-home occupation at 14932 Southern Crossing, as described on the special use permit application and narrative dated June 11th, 2015, pursuant to Section 58-98, Part 8 of the zoning ordinance, and subject to the development standards of Section 58-16 home occupations, and a further move that the SUP shall remain in effect for a period of 1 year to renew automatically for additional periods of 1 year, but expressly conditioned upon the following. Council may require, upon a majority vote after notice to the applicant, for the applicant or present property owner to submit a new application for an SUP, which shall be treated in all respects as a new and different application, subject to approval or disapproval in accordance with the general principles of law for a new application. If such notice is given to the applicant or present property owner, the SUP shall terminate automatically and without further notice or action by the council 60 days from the giving of such notice.
I second, sir.
Any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
All right. Great. Our next item is Alzheimer's Awareness Month. We have some people here that would like to speak, and plus we have a proclamation here as well. After B, yes, correct, yeah. I'll go ahead and read our proclamation. A proclamation to observe Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Whereas Alzheimer's disease is a progressive and degenerative disease of the brain causing deterioration in the memory and thinking, as well as the judgment and reasoning ability. It also affects behavior, emotions, and the ability to perform the day-to-day tasks. And whereas, according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, Alzheimer's is the only disease among the top causes of death in the United States that cannot be prevented, cured, or even slowed. Whereas, according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, Alzheimer's is the sixth leading cause of death of older adults in the United States. And whereas, according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, every 67 seconds, someone in the United States develops Alzheimer's, and there are more than 5.1 million men and women living with Alzheimer's in the United States today. Whereas the state of Virginia recognizes individuals, families, and friends and caregivers dealing with the devastating effects of Alzheimer's disease, the researchers are seeking a cause and cure in education programs and support services provided by the Virginia Alzheimer's organizations. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed that the Town Council of Haymarket, Virginia, does hereby recognize the month of November 2015 as Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and asks all the citizens to join in the observation and disease that has impacted each and every one of our lives today. And I think we have some guests that would like to speak as well.
Good evening. My name is Frances Herron. I'm a licensed professional mental health counselor. My office is in Gainesville, as is my home. But I shop here in Haymarket. I like it a lot. And my church, St. Paul's, is here in Haymarket as well. So I wanted to talk with you a little bit briefly about some of the symptoms. And I think if some of us forget where we put our keys, we think, oh no, it's starting already. Obviously, I have symptoms of Alzheimer's. And I wanted to point out the difference between normal forgetfulness when we're aging and symptoms of Alzheimer's that need to be paid attention to. I just recently, this weekend, read a symptom statistic saying that there is 1 in 9 people over the age of 65 who have symptoms of dementia. That's really stunning. And it's going to be, of course, be increasing as the population ages. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what's the difference. So some signs of Alzheimer's or dementia are poor judgment and decision-making, and typical age-related changes are making a bad decision once in a while. Some other signs of Alzheimer's and dementia are inability to manage a budget, and on the other hand, it's perfectly normal and natural to miss a monthly payment. Another symptom of Alzheimer's is losing track of the date or the season. But a normal one is to just forgetting which day it is and remembering later. I've been confused all the day because some of my clocks are changed and some are not. And I hope that's not a symptom. Also, difficulty having a conversation. Sometimes people get forgetful, forget where they are, they can't remember names. And it's okay because all of us forget a word to use once in a while. And misplacing things and being unable to retrace the steps to find them is a symptom that may be something that is a cause for paying attention to it. And losing things from time to time is perfectly normal. We seem to have a washing machine that eats socks, and we have a number of lonesome socks. I'm Fran Heron. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Oh, great. Thank you, Fran. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now we're going to take about a 10-minute recess while we go over to our town museum to light our town museum the color purple for this month in awareness of this. Plus, before we actually go over, if we could have the council come down and we'll present this proclamation to them as well. All right, so we'll meet back in about 10 Scott that would like to give a presentation here from 66 Alliance.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor. My name is Greg Scott, and because I'm supposed to introduce myself, I introduced myself earlier as a foreigner. I actually come from west of here. I'm out in Fauquier County. But there are a couple of Alliance members that are in the audience today. Is Sharon Zimmerman here? I've not met Sharon, but Sharon here. And then Perry Sherpas. And then our own Steve Aiken is also a member of the 66 Alliance. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here today. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about what VDOT is planning to do with I-66. Next slide, please. Very quickly, what is the 66 Alliance? We are a basic grassroots political advocacy organization. We started in my living room over the phone, started by individuals that are impacted by VDOT's 66 plans. We don't take money from corporate interests. People throw in $5 and $10 into the kitty to get things done. We started with about 5 people. I've got a friend of mine to put up a website, and we put out a press release for a press list that I put together. That was about 5 months ago. We now have about 1,000 individuals, all of whom are opposed in some way or another to VDOT's plans for I-66. And I think we have turned into the leading voice against VDOT's plans from the point of view of commuters and users of I-66. Next slide, please. The 66 members, as I said, are commuters. They are not landowners. There are many people that are closer into the Beltway that have concerns about takings that VDOT might be trying to do in order to expand the footprint, to expand 66 outside the Beltway. But we are from everywhere from Arlington all the way out to Warren County. And I say to people, we're from Roslyn all the way out to Winchester. We also have commuters from cities, including Haymarket, Manassas Park, and Warrenton, which is where I'm from. Next slide, please. Our main concerns, I put us into what I call 4 buckets. First of all, there are people like myself. I have a clean fuel vehicle or a hybrid vehicle that for years VDOT has allowed to run in the high occupancy vehicle or HOV lanes of 66 during rush hour by myself. I have a hybrid. Other people have electrics like Volts. There are CNGs coming on the market, hydrogen or fuel cell vehicles. And in the past, if you had a certain plate that was issued to you by VDOT, you could go in the HOV lanes or the carpool lanes of 66 by yourself during rush hour. That was just a rule. That's one bucket of people we have. The second bucket are people that are carpoolers. HOV 2 means you have to have 2 people or more in your car. So that could be a van pool. It could be a car where you're with your neighbor, your spouse, your child, where you're commuting on 66 and you're allowed to use the HOV lane. VDOT is planning to change that from HOV 2 people in the car, to HOV 3. VDOT is also planning to toll reverse commuters. In other words, folks that are now going from Arlington out to Tysons Corner, for example, or maybe from Dunloring out to Gainesville for their work. So in the past, if you go reverse against the grain of the morning rush hour or the evening rush hour, you would not be tolled, and there would be no restrictions on the lanes. Fourth, there are people that are simply against any tolling of any sort in Northern Virginia. We are all paying a half-cent per gallon fuel tax that was part of the 2013 Northern Virginia Congestion Relief Fund that, as far as I can tell right now, has about $600 million in it that is not being spent on congestion relief in Northern Virginia. So those are really the four bucket of Alliance members. Next slide, please. Let me give you a brief background on 66 and its HOV lanes. I live it every day. The people that drive it every day do, but the council members may not. So this may be a little bit Greek to you. HOV lanes are high occupancy vehicle. You put a 2 after it, and you have to have 2 people in the car. Put a 3 after it, 3, and so on. There are actually HOV 4 lanes in the country. Right now, outside the Beltway, between Haymarket and the Beltway, in the left lane only, there is HOV traffic. All others are general travel, including the shoulder inside Route 50. 2 or more folks have to be in the vehicle, or HOV2, in order to travel in that left lane. Clean fuel vehicles, such as a hybrid car like I have, is allowed to travel in that lane, as well as buses, carpools, and motorcycles. I should put motorcycles in there. The restrictions run from 5:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. eastbound and from 3 to 7 westbound. Inside the Beltway, it is all lanes that is HOV, or high occupancy vehicle. That's 2 lanes each direction. In the morning, it's the same users, HOV2, clean fuel vehicles, buses, van pools, and also Dulles Airport users. If you are going to Dulles or coming back from Dulles, you're allowed to use the HOV lanes by yourself. And theoretically, if a police officer pulls you over, you're supposed to be able to show a ticket that somebody is going out to Dulles. Next slide, please. VDOT has great plans for 66, some of which we don't particularly like. It is divided into 2 projects, inside the Beltway and outside the Beltway, and they look at it that way, and so I'm going to describe it that way. There are lots of details and studies on VDOT's project website, which is www.transform66.org. I'll let you take a look at that if you're interested. Next slide, please. VDOT's original inside the Beltway plans for 66 were as follows. And remember, this is from the Beltway all the way into the Roosevelt Bridge. They would do no new construction or widening of lanes. There would be no addition to the capacity in terms of the number of lanes. They would repeal the clean fuel vehicle program. In other words, the promoted hybrids, electrics, CNG vehicles would be repealed entirely. They would change the carpool requirement from 2 people to 3, and they're going to install toll gantries to impose what they have said is a $17 round-trip daily rush hour tolls on solo drivers. That's called a hot lane. Hot lane is high occupancy toll lane. You either have to be at high occupancy, 3 people, or you have to pay a toll. So $17 every day to go round trip, what now is being done for free. There is no Dulles Airport exemption included in the VDOT plan, and they are planning to toll reverse commuters. Of those coming from D.C. out to Tysons or out to Reston, there will be lower tolls than the 17, but tolls nonetheless. So that's the inside the Beltway plans that VDOT has put out there so far. Next slide. Outside the Beltway, as you can tell, these slides get a little denser. They're talking about constructing 1 new HOV hot lane. So there would be 2 hot lanes and 3 general purpose lanes from 495 to Gainesville. Originally it was all the way out to Haymarket, but they're talking about stopping the hot lane at Haymarket. There would be 1 less general use lane between 495 and Gainesville during non-peak hours and weekends. For those of you who travel 66 during those time periods, one of the existing HOV lanes, which now is used for general purpose, will be walled off, and it will now be a toll lane only. And goodness knows, I know how bad traffic can be on the weekends and even off-peak on 66 if you take that 1 lane away. They repeal again the clean fuel vehicle program, taking away that green, environmentally friendly program, changing HOV 2 to 3, and they're talking about installing automatic tolling gantries, similar to what they have on 495 and 95, which will impose tolls of approximately $1 per mile for non-HOV 3 vehicles. And I don't know the exact distance, but I think it's somewhere between 25 to 28 miles between Haymarket and 495. That's somewhere in the neighborhood of $25 tolls each way on top of that $17 toll if you're going all the way into D.C. So we're probably talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 a day if you want to take the toll lane. And I don't know what my last slide is there, or my last line is, but okay. The current status of VDOT's plans, the outside the Beltway plans actually were approved, believe it or not. That's what I've been talking about last week, and the Commonwealth Transportation Board approved that. Where were they? Not here in Northern Virginia, where the commuters are and where the elected officials care about this are, but they approved it about 250 miles away down in Virginia Beach, believe it or not, by unanimous vote. So that is now theoretically done. Inside the Beltway plans are on the agenda for the Commonwealth Transportation Board for December 15 at a as yet undisclosed meeting location in Northern Virginia. VDOT has floated two possible changes to the inside the Beltway. They're talking about maintaining HOV2, or the two-person carpool, for about a couple of years, 2-3 years, something like that. And they're also talking about potentially dropping the reverse commuter toll. Not for outside the Beltway, which I think most of us care about out here, but for inside the Beltway only. Next slide, please. Elected officials, quite frankly, have responded almost unanimously to this proposal with saying, no, this is not a good idea. I think that this is not a partisan issue. This is Republican versus Democrat or independent. Folks of all parties and all stripes have come out against this, whether they serve in the General Assembly or on town councils or in counties. Right now, the counties of Loudoun and Prince William County passed unanimous resolutions against VDOT's plans for 66. A similar resolution is on the Fauquier Board agenda for next month, or for this month. Resolutions are working in 3 other counties out in this direction, and then the Falls Church and Fairfax cities are working on a resolution that we hope to have passed in November. Oh, I was just going to say, it's a broad cross-section of the General Assembly and other elected officials that are opposed, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. The 66 Alliance's request to the Haymarket Council is very simple. We are looking for you to support some type of resolution opposing VDOT's plans outside the Beltway. I'm not sure what the foundation would be exactly for your opposition. I can make some suggestions. There's regressive tolling, the huge amount of tolls that would be put on your constituents in order to use 66, a highway they currently use for free. There may be a philosophical opposition to tolling a road that we've already paid through our motor fuel excise taxes. The loss of the general use lane during non-rush hour and weekends, turning that into a Lexus lane as it's being called. This could be characterized as being anti-green. You repeal a program that's promoting the next generation of vehicle technologies, increased fuel economy, decreased emissions. This is going to disrupt a lot of carpoolers' lives. I mean, we have about 1,000 members. I would say 300 of them or so are carpoolers that currently have 2 people or 2 people in the car. They would then be forced to get a third person. I know there has been controversy out here about a possibility of a park and ride lot. I understand that controversy. There is a lack of a carpooling slug line infrastructure as you get beyond Route 50, and quite frankly, transit alternatives out here that I'm not sure would be addressed so far by VDOT. The last issue I would say is VDOT is very actively considering doing what is called a public-private partnership, or a P3, for the outside the Beltway portion of this project, not inside the Beltway. They've made it very clear that would be owned by Virginia and run by Virginia. But there is an active discussion going on about having a private party build these hot lanes and then basically pay that private company back through the tolls for 30 or 40 years as they're doing on 395 and 95, and the state would be getting a small cut out of it, but the real money wouldn't come back to the state for somewhere between 30 and 40 years down the road after that contract runs out. So whichever of these issues might have you say, maybe I don't like this very much, that's what I'm asking you to consider a resolution on. Next, please. Last slide. It's up for the council to decide what the details should be. What are your main concerns individually and collectively? The Alliance is happy to assist in drafting if you feel that's appropriate. We have worked with several of the other county boards in the area to put together a resolution. I thank you very much for your time and be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you very much, sir. Any questions? Come around the corner here.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Greg. That was a great presentation. I think you covered almost everything there. And you answered my one question about cost, because when you were just talking $17, I was thinking about outside the Beltway, so that's pretty exorbitant.
That's just inside the Beltway, and we're probably talking at least 25 to 30 round trip if you're going from here into the Beltway or here to Fairfax, here to Nutley, something like that, even to get on the Metro at this point.
Right. Okay. And the other issue that you pointed out was where a potential park and ride could end up. And I heard recently that they made a decision not to put it on the Heflin property on the other side of 15 there in Gainesville.
That's my understanding. That was announced, I think, down at the Virginia Beach meeting. But I don't know if they have another place in mind for that or not. As I said, I've tended to represent the commuters rather than the landowners, and I think the landowners there's tension with the landowners over where to put that block.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Holly?
I wanted to follow up on your question.
Do you have a mic that we can put you on?
I wanted to follow up on your comment. It's my understanding that they put out a press release saying they're going to investigate alternative locations, but I have not heard that they've ruled out the Heflin Farm, just that they're investigating alternate locations.
Good
and
point.
whether they have that finalized by the time the Commonwealth Transportation Board votes on this, or actually they didn't have it finalized by the time they voted on it last week. So.
Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you, Mr. Scott. I really appreciate it.
For your time.
We also have Bob Marshall here that would like to say a couple words on this. Bob, if you can come up to the mic here. This is reminding people to come out and vote. Is that correct?
Not on this.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council for allowing me to talk after that very good presentation. I'm just going to give a rundown of where we stand on this 66 project. I have written 4 letters to the governor and the Secretary of Transportation. I had let's say, a very intense conversation with the Secretary of Transportation after they met down in Virginia Beach. This project has been characterized by silence and secrecy much more than candor and openness. I have asked repeatedly for information as to what VDOT intends to do with the shoulder lanes. No answer. I've asked VDOT officials how wide is the tunnel at the end of 66 down in Arlington. No answer. I've asked VDOT officials in public and also the Secretary last week, why haven't you used the message boards over I-66? We paid tens of millions of dollars for those, and you haven't used it. The Secretary said, I have no answer. I says, well, then you're not being very open. He says, I differ with you. I says, well, then prove it. Use the message board. They haven't done that yet. At the meeting they held up here at the Piney Branch Elementary School, the public, myself, Senator Black, Supervisor Canlin, and members of the public wanted to talk. No dice, no deal. And I suggest the reason they didn't allow that is because when members of the public were allowed to speak, myself included down in Fairfax and in Ashburn, they got an earful of opposition, and they really had no sufficient answers. And additionally, when I asked the VDOT representative at Corey Stewart's meeting, why haven't you used the message board? She says, well, I'll get back to you. They haven't gotten back to me. In addition, no first responders can use this road. Everybody going to Dulles is going to have to pay for this. That'll add to air travel. The meetings have been uniformly outside of Northern Virginia. The discussion on the tolls on 66 took place in Bristol. Now, Bristol's a mere 361 miles away from here. They circled a little bit closer to only 201 miles away last week when they went to Virginia Beach. Perhaps after this thing is built, they may decide to come and talk to us after we're, all in the poorhouse. And an astounding comment that was made by the VDOT representative is they're going to evaluate the project after they make the investments. I think you should evaluate it before you make the investments. This is $3.5 billion by their own admission out here to Haymarket. The tolls, this is a letter that I sent to the Secretary, and I just happened to be reading the technical appendix, or my wife was, and she called this to my attention. First of all, the VDOT working documents on their transform66.org acknowledge they were not going to toll existing lanes. Any tolls that would be imposed would be on new lanes. Now that is, if you're going to do it on new lanes, but don't do it on an existing lane. Moreover, the price was supposed to be, you want to guess?
Half that.
15 to 20 cents a mile. It's now 94 cents a mile. This is not really appropriate. They have designated the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, which is a mass transit agency, as the decision maker in how to allocate the funds and what projects to build. Now, why would you do that? Well, okay, somebody says there's mass transit. True, there is mass transit. But that's the only transportation structure in Northern Virginia that the General Assembly never thought to impose restrictions on for cost effectiveness for the expenditures, because they've never done it before. I mean, this governor is very imaginative in getting around some of the, walls that we have placed around protection of public money. This was very shrewd. I don't think it was proper, but they're not going to account for the efficiency of the spending. When we passed two statutes in the last 3 years, House Bill 2, House Bill 599, VDOT is supposed to prioritize all of its spending. They still haven't have it for mass transit yet, but prioritize on the cost payback in persons moved per mile per dollar spent. NVTC doesn't have to do that, and they won't have to do it for 40 years. This doesn't give me any confidence in any of this right here. The survey, VDOT took a survey in 2014. They asked about how many people thought they were very informed. 6% thought they were very informed. 6%. And this was people in Northern Virginia. They asked the question about tolls 4 times. This is for the very informed people. They said, okay, maybe 25% would do it of those who thought something should be done. Not one sentence, not one word, not one period was referenced to how much the tolls should cost. I mean, how do you do this? When you are going to have a resolution, I would urge that you direct it at the General Assembly and ask them to cut off the money. Don't pass a law, because this governor will veto it. If you put a resolution directed at the money spent, the governor would have to veto the entire transportation provision of the budget, because of his powers of veto are limited to that. In other words, he can't strike a line out of the budget and say, this amendment prohibiting the use of any monies for VDOT from imposing tolls. He can't do that. He has to strike an item. An item is a big piece of the budget. So number one, don't ask us to pass a law. Ask us to put a budget amendment, because it puts more pressure on him. He has to cut more into the budget than simply one line. So I would ask you to do that. And I turned over a bunch of this information to Washington Post reporters. I hadn't realized at the time that the Post roundly editorialized against this, just making up fantasy statements about this whole thing. For example, the governor said the only change is HOV1. Well, why putting a single person in a car, which crowds out another person with 2 or 3, reduces congestion, is something I haven't understood. But at least they could have gone after him. There's no investigative journalism on this project at all. They're extending the time for this as well. So there's a lot of information that has been buried. The only way to stop it is the General Assembly has to do it, because while the cat's away in the General Assembly, the mice will play in Richmond. So, in other words, we're at a disadvantage. We only can act when we are in formal session. So I would just urge you to do that. The gentleman's right. The special use for the people who invested money based on a promise from us that they would be able to do this, that's going to be pulled out from under them. I still haven't gotten an answer whether the source of this is for HOV, for this is the Council of Governments, which we can control in the Assembly, or it's the federal government. I've heard both answers. So, again, I'm not just myself. Everybody is being kept somewhat in the dark about this, and this is not really the way the government should run. So I hope that it can answer some of your questions or put in perspective the format of the resolution that you should do. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them if you do. So.
Any questions for Delegate Marshall?
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Our next item here, we're going to go with refund of overpayment. We're on page 16.
What about the town manager's report?
We're going to go over him. We're going to grab him at the end there.
Okay.
We have a recommended motion outlined there at the bottom.
Let's see. All right, I'm going to make the motion. You want to make it? Would you like the agenda? 16. Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
Move to adopt Resolution 2015-015, directing the treasurer to refund excess meals, tax late fees, and to authorize the treasurer to issue any refund up to $2,500 as a result of an erroneous assessment.
Motion on the floor. Seconded by Councilman Morse. Discussion.
Just one
clarification.
Question. The numbers don't seem to match up between this document and the treasurer's report.
500 versus 2,500?
Yeah,
No.
and the 10% versus 1% per annum.
Right. The correction, I think, is making the,
Sorry. I think she left us a correction here.
Okay. Excellent. Just wanted to make sure.
Yep. All right, any other discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Morris.
Yes.
Edwards. Yes. Woods.
Aye.
Tuttle.
Yes.
Passanella.
Aye.
And Aiken.
Yes. Great. All right. Our next item is Caboose Enhancement Project and award of contract, and we're on page 19 for this one.
Wednesday afternoon, we received notification from VDOT that they approved us to award the contract to Genesis. So I scrambled to get something in the agenda. I also updated the cover memo this morning with some numbers that I didn't have available to me on Wednesday. As I think, the total project cost for the construction is estimated to be $27,421.27. If you actually look on the second page, the first bullet, it gives you a bottom line of what we can expect to spend. Of that amount, $20,932.62 would be reimbursable, and the non-reimbursable obligation would be $6,488.55. That includes approximately $1,000 that VDOT spent during the design process, of which we're responsible for 20%. So in order to have the project move, I recommend that the town council pass a motion to award the construction contract to Genesis Contracting, and afterwards, if we want to talk about the composite decking, that can be treated as a change order.
Okay.
So, are there any questions about the, the other thing I want to bring up is the contract that was attached to your item showed a end date, completion date of the end of the year, 12/31/15. My recommendation is that when we enter into contract, to keep that for the deck, but change the landscaping to the end of April, because that's a better planting season.
Okay.
Do you need to change the draft motion, or is that still adequate?
I believe it's still adequate because we didn't, I included the contract for your reference, but that can be changed before we actually change. The amount, it's the amount that we have to agree to award to and who.
So the 24,407 is still good?
That is still good.
So basically, our handout would be the recommended draft motion as presented in our handout.
That is good.
Yep.
In order to award, and then after we can talk about now, or after you think about a motion, we can talk about the possibility of a change order.
Okay. All right.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like
Yes.
to move that the town council award the construction of the access improvements to the Southern Railway Caboose VDOT number EN 10-233-112, N501, P101, UPC number 97839 to Genesis Contracting and Consulting Incorporated for the amount of $24,407, and direct the town manager to sign the contract on behalf of the town council.
Vice Mayor's made a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by Councilman Passanella. Discussion. Councilman Woods?
Do we have, for the non-reimbursable funds, do we have that in the budget somewhere?
In the budget right now, you have a line item, because we actually have to pay the contractor the full amount, and then we get reimbursed. So in the budget currently, I think is actually $38,500.
Okay.
Because not included in this phase of construction is installing informational placards.
Sure.
And so that's why there's that much money actually in the budget. So you have a budget item to be able to pay this. And there should also be a reimbursement line as well.
Great. Offset that. Okay. Further questions?
Yes, sir. Holly, you mentioned on the 3rd, the bidder acknowledges the town reserves the right to assess liquidated damages.
Yes.
To move that date from December to April?
It would be for the deck to keep it at the end of December, and for the landscaping, it'll be the end of April.
So would there be a separation in the contract as far as when the deck should be completed?
Yes. I would just, before signing the contract, I would revise the liquidated damages, because I think it shows up in 2 locations,
Right.
about what the date would be.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Roll call, please.
Actually, should we talk about now or at a future meeting about a change order on the deck material?
I would actually like to talk about it tonight, because I need direction on how to proceed based off some very preliminary numbers.
Okay, because we've talked before how it would behoove us to spend a few extra dollars now and get a Trex-like material rather than wood that would need to be
Maintained.
stained or sealed on a regular basis and deteriorate over time.
Okay. All right. So what we'll do is after we take a roll call vote, then we can bring that up right after it. Because I don't think that would be part of our motion for this award. So any further comments on?
This is just the award. We would
Right.
have to come back at a future date with the actual change order.
Gotcha.
What
Okay.
I'd be looking for is direction on if you want to proceed with the change order based off some further thought, and I want to discuss some ramifications with you.
All right.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Morris.
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Woods.
Aye.
Cottle.
Yes.
Costello.
Aye.
Aiken.
Yes.
Okay. And now entertain, it looks like, is this the direction of the council to go ahead and look to get this information?
Yes.
Yep. So,
I had talked with the contractor, and the price of composite decking can vary widely depending on the quality that you choose. So we were trying to just do a rough guesstimate of how much it could possibly cost. And it could cost, by the time you figure in revising specifications, we would have to replace the ramp that's currently there that was not originally included because of the difference in material. There will be staff time that would have to be to figure out the specifications, because we can't call out just one manufacturer since there's federal funding involved. We would actually have to spec out either the quality or several manufacturers. And then the time for Genesis actually to prepare that bid, that hardcore bid. The numbers I'm coming up with are reaching $15,000 to $20,000, of which would be the sole town's responsibility, because my previous awards show that once we get the informational placards, we will have used up basically all of the caboose money. In addition, it will delay the installation of the deck. If you decide to move forward with the change order, I would change the end date for both the deck and the landscaping to be at the end of April. That allows us to get the change order in place and for the contractor to get the material that he needs. Hearing that it's going to cause a time delay, and it will cost $15,000 to $20,000 in the quick and dirty without specking out the material, which can vary widely. I want a direction from town council. Is this what you want to pursue? I don't want to go on a fishing expedition. I would like to know that this is really what you want to pursue, and you actually intend to probably
Now
follow.
that we have some cost data there, I am not in favor of a 50% increase in materials for this. I was
Well, it wasn't
thinking,
just material.
understand, but of overall thing, I mean, 10 or 15%, maybe 20 for Trex, and that I might go with, but to have the whole cost jump by 50%, I would not favor.
Councilman Cottle.
would it be appropriate to do like a cost analysis of 3 to 5 years? I mean, the life expectancy. I mean, why, we don't want to spend more money per se. It's kind of either pay me now or pay me later. Is there any way we could get some estimate of, how often this thing's going to have to be stained, what the life expectancy of the deck, because $10,000 or $15,000 is a lot now, but 5 years down the road, if you have to replace it for $30,000-$40,000.
We can do that. I want to note that if we are still pursuing the thought of a change order, I will not tell him to move forward. So we will have to change the contract end date based off that, because saying the end of December assumes that he can jump forward on it now. But if we're still considering the possibility of doing a change order, he can't order the wood.
Right. I think we would be wise to have all the facts before we make a final decision. If it's delayed 30, 60 days, who cares? We need to get it right. That would be my recommendation.
Councilman Pascal, you
No,
had
I
a
think that's-
comment?
I'm sorry?
You had a comment?
Actually, I don't. I think Matt said it all. I think it makes sense to do the analysis if we can do it. And the fact of the matter is, as Steve just said, I mean, it is the wintertime, so we have some time to do it right and get all the details and all the data and information to make that final decision.
Over on this side?
Yes, I'm not in favor of rushing this to give Genesis a blank check. So we need to put a pause on it, even if we have to change the date when it should be completed. And you know what Matt just suggested in getting a cost analysis is needed, because we then can pause and look at it to see if it would be in our best interest to just go with the wood that was proposed or the new composite that we are suggesting. So I would rather wait, sir.
Councilwoman Edwards.
How long will it take you to do a cost analysis on this?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, by next council meeting, I would assume I could do it. I'm going to have to make some guesstimates once again on the cost of the composite, because without going through the effort of speccing it out, some of this is just going to be using some engineering. I could have it by the next council meeting.
Okay.
And that was something I would try and do in-house rather than going back to the contractor. I'm a firm believer if you don't, it's one thing to ask for people for rough estimates, but if you're on a fishing expedition, you don't make them spend hours upon hours working on something. I just need to know the level of effort that the council would like to spend now, whether it was going forward to prepare a change order or now a cost-benefit ratio or cost analysis.
All right. Councilman Woods, any comments?
I think my esteemed colleagues have said it.
Mr. Mayor, just one more. This is not a discussion about which company we're giving it to.
No.
I mean, we're already decided in going with Genesis, and it surprises me that we can't get this information readily from a contractor. I mean, they should have good estimates in hand.
Well,
as
they can't, because one thing, they don't have the material specifications at this point. He had reached out and asked for a ballpark figure, but until we give him actual specification, and he gave me a rough figure. And that's what I based off but he still said, it had like about a 35% swing until we give him the actual specs.
Okay. And just for clarification, we're only talking about the decking and handrails, is that correct?
The decking, handrails, we would have to also replace the ramp.
Right,
With-
okay.
If we use the pressure treated, we can use the existing ramp. If we go to the composite, we also have to replace the ramp.
Okay. All right. So it looks like
I just don't understand how is it that we can have a contractor that cannot give us something closer than 35%.
Well, because he doesn't have the material specifications, so how is he supposed to know what quality of composite we're going to ask him to give us? There's a wide swing. And so without a specification, he just called up, he can call up a composite decking and say, okay, how much do you think this is going to cost for this area? But until he knows for sure what type of composite we're going to spec out, he has to say, this can vary.
So what's the purpose then of the cost analysis if that specification is not included in the cost analysis?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to have to pick a quality level.
Right.
And see what I can find out for the cost of that, and then compare that against I'm trying not to go to our contractor and say, spend all this time, energy, and money on something we don't even know that you're going to do.
True, but based on your experience and your knowledge in doing it, you can choose the material that you think is the best fit. There are expert opinions within the town, including our Joe. You could ask Joe for an input. And from that, you guys are the professionals. You could then determine what material we're using. Then the contractor cannot be given a quotation that's off by 35%.
If you want us to go through the exercise of speccing it out at this point, I can do that.
Well, I don't think there's anyone on the council here that has more knowledge on the specking than you.
Not for decks.
That's
where.
But you have resources you can tap into. Yeah.
We would have to see if there's resources I can tap into, or if we have to go back to the structural engineer. Okay. So we are incurring costs at this point. Like I said, I could have made some assumptions, but if you're trying to get more of a hardcore number, then there are, additional costs that will be associated with that and more time spent. As long as you're aware of that, I have no problem with providing whatever it is that you want or need.
Okay. I think it's probably the consensus of the council that we definitely want to look at the higher grade material and see the analysis on it that would give us a better decision. Vice Mayor?
I'm going to withdraw my support for that and say that after hearing all this, I'd be willing just to go with the wood right now and be done with it.
Okay. So we have, as we poll our colleagues here again.
I always think a cost analysis is a great idea. Should do it in the first place. But I think it's okay to do that. I don't think we're going to lose much time in doing it. I have all the confidence in the world in Holly that she'll have it done, and if we have to meet, we'll meet special.
Okay. Councilman Cottle.
I think to make sure we're spending the taxpayers' money in a responsible way, we need to know what it's going to cost today and this is a large deck. Decks aren't cheap. And just to tear down and replace single-family deck is a lot of money, let alone something like this. And I don't think the town, we're going to spend 35% over. I think we should take a look at it.
Okay.
My concern is that we spend a lot of money and do realize that there is no benefit in going with the composite material, and then we have spent the town's money irresponsibly on pursuing something that I have the feeling that it's not going to work out in the favor of the composite.
Okay. Ms. Edwards?
Two things. I hope that this is a teaching moment for all of us, that when we apply for grants, that we really think about what we want and our specs are when we go out to get them, and not second guess after the grants have already been awarded to us. And I agree, I have replaced my deck with composite. I know how expensive it is, and honestly, there's cleaning and upkeep that needs to go with a composite deck as well. It is not maintenance-free. So I would side with Steve on this and say, I think that if we spend the funds, like Kurt said, and we investigate, I think we're going to come to the conclusion that it's not the smart way to go. So I just say, no.
Councilman Morris.
I don't think we would lose anything by doing the cost analysis.
We're in an informal 3-3, and it's informal. I think I would agree with that getting this information, even though we're spending a little bit of money to get this information, would be a wise thing to do. So there's your directive to get it and bring it back to the council. And I think this should be something very simple. This should be, they already have their square footage of how many boards they're going to use, and they know what their price is for right now for they're pressure treated. So knowing the difference should be a pretty simple thing. So, all right.
I was hoping to clarify, because it sounded like there was a misunderstanding with Councilman Cottle. When it came to the final change order, I would not allow that 35% swing. It's just, in this, I only asked for, give me a rough estimate at this point. I just want to be clear, I would never, with the town, and I would never approve a change order that had that 35% swing built into the change order.
No, I'm not suggesting you would.
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is, for you to research it, shouldn't cost the town that much money. And to me, it should be a one-afternoon proposition. You call a couple people, and what's the square footage? I mean, I don't see
It's
where.
more than that, because you've also got to figure out how often it needs sealed, and how much the sealing cost, and what's the cleaning of a Trex thing, and how often do you do that, what's that cost? So there's
And
many,
the labor is different on installing a composite deck as opposed to a
there's a
regular
lot of
deck.
factors in here that's going to take a bit of time.
I understand it, but if we're going to spend money, we need to know what we're spending it for and how long it's going to last.
Analysis.
I was just trying to regurgitate.
Right, no, I
I was
understand.
just trying
Okay,
to clarify.
so I think you've got your direction there, and thank you very much. All right, our town manager's report. You need some direction too, right?
Yeah. I'll just jump in real quick. Really, essentially, I think it's important to note that
We're on page 12, just for our listening audience there.
it's important to note that the charter, we're actually just looking for direction. The charter would still have to go through, any kind of charter meetings would have to go through a public process at some point. Really what we're doing is, at this point, I'm just looking for direction from council as to where you will wish to move forward with regard to the charter amendments. The charter, there were many reasons for.
Hey, Brian, can you bring that mic a little bit
Yeah.
closer? Yeah.
There was many reasons for the drafted changes. Essentially, what I'm looking for this evening is really direction as far as what would you like us to do to continue to work on it. If you'd like us to possibly go back and look at just the election terms and change that in the existing charter. I'm basically from a staff and attorney standpoint just looking for direction as to what do you want us to do with regard to moving forward with it. We can leave it where it is, schedule a work session. I mean, those are lots of options. We have a deadline that's approaching, and essentially what I would like to do is just.
You want to get the pulse, yeah, because I had basically asked the town manager for the last meeting to put this off. I thought that this was something that, number one, I think that we should have had possibly a meeting before this point to come up with direction to give to the town manager and attorney to draft these changes. Understanding that there's a deadline, I'm not in favor to support any kind of changes at this point, but I'll listen to our esteemed colleagues here to see if there's a consensus to move forward or to try to get this in before our next year. But I think we should have been in this process maybe 6 months ago, starting this and looking at it and vetting it and getting the public input, as we heard tonight as well, for these type of changes. And I think we're at the end of the rope here of this deadline that we don't need to or in my opinion, to move this thing forward. But I'll listen to we'll start to the left here. Councilman Morse.
Can I reserve for?
Sure. Councilman Edwards or Councilwoman Edwards.
I have to agree with Mayor Leak. I think it's too late in the year to get them in for this year if we have to have them in by January 1st. And I think there's not enough time for public hearings and all the other things that are going on, and I think we should just
Defer and wait till next year. Councilman Woods?
I believe that a charter amendment is due and that it needs to be looked at, but I don't want to rush it.
Okay. Councilman Cottle?
Yes, sir, I think we need to take a look at it, but it needs to be vetted, and I think we need to take our time to do it. We have a lot on the plate that needs to happen between now and the first of the year.
Okay. Councilman Pastanello?
Yeah, I think it needs to be a very deliberate effort. I want to ask our town attorney, for the benefit of everybody watching and listening, when we do this, there's only one window of opportunity throughout the year?
That is correct, sir. You can, you have to get it before the General Assembly. You can squeeze it in after January 1st if that's the desire, but it's generally better to have it in by January 1st as a pre-filing deadline. It's unusual for the General Assembly to consider anything after that, so that's why I put the January 1st date on there. And then if the process is you have to advertise at least 10 days in advance of a public hearing, and then you hold the public hearing. If after having the public hearing, the council is of a mind to ask for a charter amendment, you vote on the charter amendment and we mail it to the one or more members of the General Assembly for introduction. And then if they choose to pass it, they do so. If they may choose to pass something different than you ask for, of course, it's always a little bit exciting when things go down to Richmond. But that's the process in a nutshell, and yes, there is only one opportunity essentially every year.
Okay, and there's a risk. There's always a risk, but a calculated risk. One of the things I'm concerned about, and I think we need to take our time with this, is the unintended consequences. I think I heard that earlier this evening, and I feel very strongly about that. I think we need to be very deliberate and very careful, so I'm in no hurry with this. Let's get it right.
Vice Mayor Aiken.
I do believe that this has been kicked around many, many years, that it's time, not necessarily for January 1st of this year, but I believe we need to schedule a work session and actually move forward with something, or say we're not going to move forward with something. I mean, we need to sit down and go through it and figure out what we're going to do. I'm not saying we need to do this by January 1st, but I think we need to do something soon, just to make progress on it rather than keep pushing it forward.
Okay. Why don't we direct Jen, if we could put this on a continuing. Oh, sorry, that's right. You reserved your right. Sorry. If you'd like
I'm in no rush there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we'll put this on our agenda. So there's your direction. Go ahead for your next item there, sir.
Well, all I was going to recommend is if we're not in a rush for January 1st, I'd say we push it until after the new year and start. That way you start afresh to ramp it up.
Yes.
You have plenty of time for the review.
Yep.
The only other direction is per our fall retreat, I was asked to craft a 60-day action plan. I did put together a 60-day action plan for the council. I had submitted it to them, to all of you all, looking for any kind of feedback. They're not receiving any feedback, but I just want to verify with the council that we are, no one is in disagreement or has any additions to that 60-day action plan to move forward. This would be through the month of November and December. Many of the items on the action plan are actually already in the works for the most part, and so I do not foresee any issue being able to complete these tasks before the end of the year.
Okay.
Could you, Mr. Henshaw, could you forward that to me since I was not on council when that was?
I'd be happy to.
Yes.
Questions or comments to Brian regarding this? We're okay? All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just one other topic. We do have some planning commissioner training that's coming up at the end of this week. We'd love to, if anyone is interested in going, please just let me know. I'll be happy to get that arranged for any members of the council or any of the other bodies that might be interested in some of the actions of the planning commission.
Yep. All right. It sounds like we have a couple vacancies as well on that committee. Anything else here, Mr. Henshaw? I think
That is all I have,
okay.
unless anyone has any questions.
It looked like the speed indicator signs. My question, I know we mentioned about 2, but why not 3 right now? And, it sounds like we could actually get that within our budget and actually do the 3 working streets that we have.
That is fine. That would be a council's prerogative. If you'd like me to, we can make sure we order 3. I have not gotten any figures on how much installation would cost, but I don't anticipate that going over the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. And we heard earlier comments about Carolina Road when that opens up, and that could be a really good candidate for that area.
Right. Yep, absolutely. So it sounds like we could have it as a directive, I think, that we're looking at 3 versus 2. Right. Any other further questions for Brian?
I just have a couple, sir. With regard to the sidewalk repair, the time that is stated here, it seems as if it's a very short period for the repair. And I'm wondering if they're going to be doing it the way how it's supposed to be done, which is the end that was just finished. It was done with concrete, and then the bricks are laid on top. Or are we going to be doing it the same way we've done it over the years?
Well, the issue would have to, we're talking about a much different scale project if we're going to go back through and really come back and refinish all of the sidewalks. the way it was done within the streetscape. Just to kind of clarify, the new section of the streetscape was done with a concrete base underlayment, whereas the original section was done under a sand base layment. We are going to be making the repairs to this just to bring them up because we have some trip hazards, probably with just taking the bricks out, rebuilding up the foundation underneath, and then moving forward with that, because otherwise you're looking at a much more significant scale project than what we're talking about. We're really just talking about repairs at this point.
Repairs of the trip hazard.
Correct.
And was that actually, you probably remember, crushed stone and then sand, or is it just, was the sand?
I'd have to defer to someone.
Yeah. Okay.
Holly would probably either know or I would defer to our contractor.
And it is a legitimate concern with people tripping.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if we are trying to fix a problem that will reoccur in 6 months. Because there is still some settling that's taking place, and we're seeing it throughout the town. But are we spending, throwing out a figure, are we spending $2,000 to fix the problem when spending $4,000 would permanently fix it? And then as the trip hazards come around, then we repair it properly.
I would have to defer at this time to find out a little bit more, see if that is a possibility. If you can only repair sections utilizing concrete underlayment, so I'd have to get back to you all, but I can certainly look into that. I don't know if you can kind of patch it along, or if that's something you got to do in sections or not.
But this is where I'm having a misunderstanding with proposals like this and the last one that's coming to council. Because I think the staff should be doing the research and bringing to council instead of waiting a month, getting the money that you're requiring for approval, then having these comments go back to you, wasting another month and going back to the contractor. The contractor who's doing this has gone through it, which was one of the things that you recommended. They've gone through the selection process. We have chosen this contractor as the company that's going to do our repairs. I find it hard to understand and believe that a contractor cannot give us this information whenever we ask for it. So if we're going to do something, let's do it right. And if we know that we are all of us agreed on the way the new pavement and walkway was done was the best way and the right way to do it, how is it that it wasn't brought as a proposal that it would cost X% more? It seems as if we're working backwards, because we're wasting time looking at a proposal for sidewalk repairs. It's like we're patching the little problems. And as a council, we've made it an effort to fix the problems instead of patching them. So now we're going to be directing you, if the council agrees, to go back and get a price estimate on, number one, if it's possible for us to do concrete underneath the pavement. And that's going to take another month before we can actually act on it. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if this is one of those cases where you could task the public facilities for the town manager to bring it to the public facilities chairperson, and then for that decision to be made and passed to the rest of council. But it seemed like it's taken, we should be getting these figures. I wanted to comment to Holly earlier that if she needs help, instead of going out and paying someone to find the right specs on the wood, I can provide it for free. I can get companies that can provide it for free.
Okay. There again, I think probably the right time to be looking at this was in our work session, where we could have, tasked the town manager to then put together our...
Yes, sir, but sorry, sir, but we never addressed the town manager's report during the work session.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, if we had concerns like this, I mean, I think the proper place would have been ask the questions directly, and then we could maybe then had a better, even though we had not addressed specifically his report, I think that would be a prudent thing. Now, I think obviously, Brian, that, working with the facilities, maybe this would be something that, since the scope looks like it's going to be pretty big, and as the right fix for it might be the replacement or doing it in sections, that obviously going through the facilities committee would be a proper thing. So, any other comments? Vice Mayor?
Yes, I disagree that we should even be looking at a major renovation. I don't consider it a repair. I consider it a renovation, which would be very expensive. And the tasking was to repair what was there, and you repair it pretty much the same way that it was built originally. And so I think we're going down a rabbit hole here that would be very costly to underlay cement where it's just sand right now to bring it up to standards in where the other sidewalk is.
But if the concrete is the best fix, then doing that one repair for that one section, you wouldn't have to worry about settlement in the future. Councilman Woods.
My fear is that if we do this patchwork repair or renovation or whatever you want to call it, that we're just going to have a bigger problem in the future where the different sections of concrete have shifted in different ways, so that now you've got, instead of a brick here and a brick there, we've got a whole section that's a giant trip hazard, and we have to fix it even more than we would have originally.
Well, Councilman Edwards.
I'm sorry, I came in here on the back end of this. What section, what section of sidewalk are we, it's on? What section are we speaking
For
of?
example, in front of Kathy's Hair Design,
Okay.
Haymarket Day, we had a bunch of trip hazards there. You've got like about a 2-inch where obviously the settlement has happened, and there's
Is it a
definitely.
grate? I mean, how many are there?
It's the sections, maybe, 8 feet or 6 feet or 4 feet,
But we're not
depending
talking
on.
about an entire,
No, not the entire sidewalk.
A 6-foot section.
Yeah. Spot repair.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm just thinking that a 6-foot section isn't going to be that outrageous to repair it properly, but.
What I don't know is if you can match the two different applications. I think that's what my concern is.
Why don't we pull from our resources there? Our Joe, I'm sure, will be able to give us his recommendation, and I think we would definitely want to hear that of what the fix would be both ways and his recommendation. Yep. Okay. All right.
And communicate to the public facilities, and the public facilities can communicate to the council.
Okay. Any further questions for Brian? All right. Our next item, our Hair-Over property. I added this, actually, we had it on the agenda, and I've added this on there kind of specifically to put the different addresses down, since at our presentation, it appeared to me that it looked like until we actually look at these houses of whether or not to keep both, one or none, and the other aspects of the property, the outbuildings, that it was quite apparent during our presentation that we would need a special time just to drill down on this. And that way, I think we've now got almost all the information we could ever want on a situation. We've gotten the ARB's report, which has spent many meetings in talking about this. The Planning Commission has drilled down and looked at their aspect of it and put in their recommendation. We have the staff report that has put together. We've had the stakeholders meeting where we invited the public, and they actually came out, and we went over the different aspects of this property. I think now it's time for the voting body to sit down in a work session and hammer this thing out. I'd like to set up basically a continuation meeting of this tonight's meeting. So I'd like for you all to look at your calendars, see what we can do. Obviously, if we can't make it in this week on Thursday, I would not like to do it on Friday. Then maybe possibly Tuesday next week, Wednesday next week, or do we have any conflicts? But I'd really like to have the entire council here to sit down and drill down on this. So what do we have as far as scheduling?
Sir, would setting it during this week, we would be keeping in accordance with the time frame when to announce or advertise?
Yeah, it's a continuation of this meeting, so. Any conflicts on days?
I would, if we're going to have a meeting, I would like to do it this week because I'm going to be tied up over the next 2 weeks after Saturday.
All right.
The only day I have available this week, and I would agree, is Friday.
Okay. Can we do maybe an early Friday? Is that possible for, early meaning like not a 7 o'clock, but like a 5 o'clock on Friday? Will we all be able to make that, or make a portion of it?
I'll be fine with that, sir.
Looks like we got some nods of heads here. Wow, that's perfect, then there we go. Continuation,
But what about Susan? I'm not
Oh,
sure.
I'm
she
sorry.
can.
I have,
well, we need to discuss it, and in order to discuss it, we're going to need to have,
there's people here that want to hear the discussion, and we're here.
right. Right. So, in other words, you would like to go ahead and, I mean, it's 9 o'clock now, we've been at, for 2 hours, with a little bit.
5 hours at our work sessions.
Understood.
Saying, we're here, people are here.
Right, but just to make understood, what we're talking about here is a discussion with the dais. This isn't with the, this would be the listening public hearing it.
I understand that,
Right.
but they're entitled to hear what we have to say.
Yeah, absolutely, that's the transparency. So I just thought that by having it on its own merit, on its own work session, we would be able to focus just on this. So let's go around the dais and see what we think of. Steve,
Well-
you're fine with a continuation meeting?
I'm fine with the continuation meeting, but, and I'm not saying you need to stop tonight or whatever, but 2 weeks ago I had hip replacement. I've been here 2 hours and I can't stand much more.
No, I understand.
I'm
No,
gonna,
I can appreciate
I'm
that.
gonna
Yeah.
have to leave regardless.
Right.
But I don't have to be here. I know it's preferable, but sometimes you just can't get 7 people here
Right.
at the same time, and you have to move forward.
Right, okay. Councilman Pasanel?
I'm good with the continuation.
I'm good with the continue to Friday.
Okay,
Either way.
okay. Councilman,
I was just told I can't be here on Friday.
you cannot be here on Friday. Okay, at 5 o'clock.
Next week? No,
Okay,
I have a meeting.
okay,
I was reminded that I have a meeting.
okay. In Ms. Edwards, you would be
I
able
mean, I'll
to?
be here, but I don't think we should do it, so.
Okay. Now, we'll go ahead and make that for our continuation for Friday at 5 o'clock. Now, are there any aspects that we would like to discuss tonight regarding this? Because, good.
I do have to go, but if I could make a statement before I go,
Absolutely.
just to put something on record here. I mean, I am a supporter of the food pantry, absolutely. But one of the things that, I've been on council for 3 years now, I've been involved in town for even longer, and this issue has come up many times in the past on what is the appropriate level of support that a government body using citizens' money should support a entity like this. And I believe there should be some support there. But there are other residents that believe there should be no support. And I've had many of them come to me and state that. And I've had just as many, if not more, residents say that we should have support. So it is a difficult issue. And recall, I mean, we have a loan on those buildings and that property that we pay off. And if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard numbers of something like $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year per building that we're paying, well, not per building, but for the land and that we are paying each year to cover that million-some dollar loan.
We had $1.5 million that we.
$1.5 million we spent on that property. So the food pantry is getting a substantial benefit of $50,000 a year from us in a sense. Now, granted, they're not using the whole property, they're only using the building and that. So it's not that, I just want to make clear that they are getting a benefit from the town, that we are funding them substantially because of that $1.5 million we spent on that property that we're paying off. And I'm not saying whether or not that's enough or too much or too little. I just want to make sure everybody understands there is a substantial commitment already, and we have to figure out how best to use that property for the town, and maybe that includes a food pantry. Or maybe we can figure out somewhere else to move them. But just be aware it's a difficult decision that we're going to have to make, and we accept all inputs from everybody on both sides of the issue. And we just hope that we can find a middle line there somewhere that we can satisfy everyone. And it may be impossible, but I just want to put it out there that so that everyone understands that there is a substantial financial commitment already in place that may be unknown. Again, the numbers may be a little skewed there, but they're on those. I mean, that $1.5 million is not skewed. That's how much it costs for that property. And we're paying it off over 10, 15 years.
For example, I think we're how many years into it, and our balance now is about 900,000.
So we can. I mean, if we need to, we can figure out the exact numbers. But it's not. It's not just the property. We're not using the property, and we own it, and we're not making any payments to it, and therefore, it's no big deal for $1 a year. And that's what some of our residents have approached us with over the last 3 years, saying, why are we doing this? Should there be a public-private partnership? And again, I disagree with not having one, but there are limits to what we can afford also. So that's the type of considerations that we're going to have to do, and it's going to take a little bit of time to work out. So thank you.
Okay. All right.
And with that, I'm sorry, but I just can't sit anymore.
I'm glad that we had the time that you had.
Good stand.
Good stand.
What?
Yeah.
You can stand and vote.
You can stand and vote. Yeah.
But I think he's taxed himself to the.
I have a cushion in the car.
Well, with that, we've got, of course, have our Friday, 5 o'clock, where we're going to be drilling down on not only the aspects of the two properties, the outbuildings, the lease for the food pantry, and then also the attributes of what we're looking at to put in the park, the pavilion, yeah, exactly. Okay. Any further comments? Questions?
Well, there was one comment that I've been weighing on. I don't know if it's appropriate in saying no, but I got an email saying that if the food pantry is moved, then the town council must find a place to move it to. And I did not realize that we had assumed the responsibility of the food pantry. Yeah. That the town of Haymarket was responsible for moving them if they had to move.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the comment is. Well, I just to let in disclosure, I spoke to Pam, I think it was last week, possibly if I see a nod of yet last week. My days run together, but just to let her know that that we're coming up to the closing point of the Hairover property. The park, we've, like I said, gone through the stakeholders, all these different things. We're looking now to put this vision together, and we're not sure how, depending on those two buildings, how that vision incorporates the pantry's location there. As we all know, we've been very supportive of the pantry. It is one of the good running things that happens that's in our town limits. The volunteer base is phenomenal that they're able to pull in, and the people that they help and serve. And that's the reason why I think the vision was, at least 2 years ago, entering in the lease with them, was to support that. We found segments out of our charter that we are called to help the needy as far as our charter goes, and we, as a council, supported that. And because of the fact that we had an empty building, that was able to, just like we gave them this area in the early years to be able to stage the food and to distribute for the Thanksgiving, the holidays. So the town, I think, has been very, very supportive of the pantry and will continue to support as best that we can, but keeping in mind that we also have a vision of a park that we're trying to put to place there. So I wanted to also recognize that we do have Pam here. As we all know, that she's going to be leaving our area. I want to thank her for her years and years of tireless service as serving on the town council, on the committees, as being the mayor of our town, and as being on the board of directors of the food pantry. And I just want to take this moment to thank you, Pam, from the dais here. And Pam, I'll go ahead and take my chairman prerogative. If you'd like to, I know that you wanted to take a few moments. I knew you were going to be late coming today. Yeah.
First of all, I want to address Chris. I'm not sure who sent you that email. That's not something that the board is, looking for you as the town council. We would look for your support, but we certainly weren't looking for that. I just want to let this board know that with my leaving, there is going to be a tremendous group coming right behind me to support this ongoing effort. We will not give up on the Haymarket Food Pantry, even with my not being here. And I greatly appreciate your allowing me to take a few minutes. The Harover property means a lot to a lot of residents in this town. And I'm not sure that you hear from them as much as you should. But you are here to represent the community. I don't know how many of you actually have ever gone out and talked to your residents and asked them what they feel about your taking down two historical, or the possibility, I should say, of taking down two historical properties. Those properties have been here since, 1924? And you do have a process to go through, and I'm sure that you are going to abide by the rules and go through the whole process if that's what your determination is. I have a feeling that you'll find some of the people that are here tonight will be with you at 5 o'clock on Friday.
Good.
I know I will be, and hopefully you will allow us to have some time to speak. I would like to address Steve's concern. I would like to know exactly how much money you allocate or you think that that building is worth. Because then I would also say to those residents, why are they not aggravated and annoyed with you that the police department is vacant and has been for how long? And what is that costing the town residents? Is that taken into consideration? I'm not here to argue. I'm just trying to bring some points to you that you may not be thinking of. So I would appreciate knowing those numbers before Friday, if that's a possibility. I'm sure your treasurer or your town manager can provide that to us. I'm not quite sure how you do that. Maybe you do it based on the square footage versus the acreage. When you go down to that, a $900,000 loan on 4 acres is what? Per acre, per square foot. So I would like that figure. I think we deserve to know that as well as your council deserves, because coming up with a $40,000 or $50,000 a year figure, that might not be true. All right, I thank you. That's it. I will leave you.
All right, well, thank you, and thank you for your time, Pam. Okay, with that said, any other further comments? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion. Yep.
Council time?
Council time. Yeah, we could do that now instead of for next week. Absolutely. Ms. Edwards.
Okay, I have something at the ARB, since I'm the liaison for the ARB. We have been working on welcome signs for the town, the sign plan. They can leave.
Yeah.
Stick around.
We have been working on trying to update the welcome signs into town at the, the entry into town, the different entry points. And I think the ARB has come to a point where we would like, number one, we need someone to help us with graphics and like a graphic designer and someone who, we had someone design the seal here. So we would like to.
Look to Jen, because I think she did it.
We have.
Oh, okay.
We would like to get someone to do some work on that and come up with some different designs, as well as like to have the council direct Holly to get us in touch. I know at one point, the Journey Through Hallowed Ground came to the ARB and, sorry, was it not on? And discussed working in conjunction with one another, because we are on the Journey to Hallowed Ground through this way. So if we could direct Holly to make that connection so we can work in conjunction with each other, that would be great. And she's offered to do that, so.
You okay?
And I think I've said my piece on the Hanover property, so I'll just
Okay.
let that go till
All right.
Friday.
Councilman Woods.
I'll also reserve my comments on Hanover till Friday when that's the topic of discussion. I think the only other thing that I have is that I just want to publicly state that I don't know of any personal agendas being put forward on this council. I don't know of any untoward actions or anything. I am certainly working towards what I believe to be the best of the town to the best of my abilities, and I just wanted to publicly state that. And also invite anyone who has any questions about any decisions or actions I've made to come talk to me, come ask me about them. I think that anyone on this council would say the same. You know, if you have questions, if you have concerns, come talk to us. We'd love to hear your ideas and hear what you have to say, and we will take those things into consideration. And again, I believe that all of our desire is to do what is best for the town.
All right. Councilman Morse.
Thank you. There was a citizen, I think it was Mr. Weir, who stated during the citizen's time that over the last 16 months we have doubled staff, doubled boards or committees, and doubled attorneys' fees. And I think as a council we need to be transparent with the community by examining especially these three areas to see if they are true, and to state to the community whether they're true or false. Because whilst any person, any resident can come and state things to the general public, we owe the community as a responsibility because of our position to make sure that those statements are backed up by facts. And if it is true, it goes towards a question that was posed in the work session to the treasurer. The question that was posed was, is she concerned about the percentage of the actuals versus the budget? And she came back and she answered those. So if there is some issues as far as, fees, doubled staff, doubled boards, committees, then there should be some facts to back it up. And we need to let the public know. And if we are irresponsible, we need to let the public know. And if we have been responsible, then we need to call a truth, and a lie, a lie. Secondly, sir, I think with regard to the I-66 changes, I think we need to invite VDOT here. We need to get it on record whether they refuse to come or not. I think we should reach out to them to have them come before we draft a resolution. I think it is improper for us to draft a resolution without hearing their side of the story. Just so that we are protecting ourselves and in the best interest of the community that we represent. At least we're doing things fairly. So those are the two things I have, sir. Thank you.
All right, great. Councilman Passanelli.
Okay, I have a long list tonight. I've been saving up. Anyway, I just wanted to report back to everybody that I went to the TANV meeting, Northern Virginia Town Association with Brian, and the bulk of the discussion had to do with the legislative agenda. I want to make a recommendation that we let Brian and the town attorney, or you guys, consider putting together a list. And it's a pretty simple list that includes things like 599 money, B-poll, things of that nature that benefit a small town like ours. So I want you guys to consider that going forward, and I think that's something that we can move on rather quickly as opposed to a charter amendment. And we do have, as I said, examples from the other towns of Vienna, Leesburg, who have done a lot of the work already. That's one thing. I want to recognize Chief Noble on Halloween evening. Had a nice little knock on the door. It was a nice surprise, handing out candy and watching our children and keeping everybody safe. So thank you, sir, for doing that.
Best costume of anybody.
Yeah, yes, he did. Yes, he did. And I heard so many positive things about that from the community that I live in and the HOA. So I'm really proud of that. So thank you, sir. I want to make sure we all remember November 11th next week. I don't know if I took your thunder there, Mr. Mayor,
That's
but
right. I'll
very
just
important.
check that off my list.
Okay.
That's good.
You got me with Pam, though.
Yeah,
So I was
well,
going to mention
yeah.
that as well. And of course, don't forget to vote tomorrow. A couple more things. VRE meetings upcoming. Now, I think I'm going to be out of town, but we all should think about trying to get to the meeting on November 10th at Gainesville Middle School over by the Catholic Church off of Limestone, I think it is. So I would recommend that we all, and we get that message out to the community so folks have an opportunity to go and see for themselves what it's all about. The mayor is going to be attending a meeting on the 6th. It's more of a policy advisory in Fairfax with all the elected officials, so that ought to be a good meeting. And, you know, I was walking the other day, and I think people, you know, safety is all about education, enforcement, and engineering, I think. And I was walking a crosswalk, and we have those signs, which are phenomenal. I think they're really nice. But I was in a crosswalk that didn't have one. And, of course, a couple of cars went by until somebody finally stopped, which was great. So I think we ought to consider other locations and maybe expand that program, take a look at that. Might be something that's really helpful when we talk about vehicle and pedestrian safety. And the last thing is, I'm wondering if it would make sense if we add into the agenda, I'm throwing it out there, that we have our PC and our ARB liaisons on the council, and maybe we should have a separate item for their discussion to bring us up to snuff on what's happening. Now, you do that during your council member time.
No, but we do it at the ARB meetings. We have a separate time.
Right.
And I don't know if you do it at the PC meeting. There's a separate line item on the agenda for that.
So
I
I'm
think it
wondering,
makes sense, yeah, we'll have Jen put that going future.
if it's okay with you guys, this way we keep the liaison effort going and we're hearing what's happening if we're not attending the meetings or watching it on TV at home. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that's it, and I want to just thank everybody for coming tonight. It's been a great meeting, and see you Friday.
Councilman Cottle.
Yes, sir. I have a lot of thoughts on the Harover property. I'm going to take a few minutes to share a couple of them, and then I would, for those of you watching online, I would hope this place would be packed on Wednesday. We're not trying to push this down the road so no one shows up. It's just the contrary. We want as much input as possible. But with that said, I've been a resident in Haymarket since '03. I've lived across the street in Green Hills since '97. I remember helping Mr. Harover move his wares out of the house, which is neither here nor there. But this lack of decision has been hanging over this town for way too long. Because, in my opinion, no one wants to make a decision. Because this group says, I want this other group over here says, I want this. One of our citizens tonight talked about funding in a plan. He made the comment, I'm paraphrasing, I hear your plan, but I don't hear funding, which I agree to a point. When it comes to the Harover property, we're trying to find the plan. Until we nail down what the plan is, we're not going to know what it's going to cost to fund it till we can actually go out and get the funds to do it. So we keep having all these drawings come up, and we're wasting time and money because whether we want to admit it or not, the elephant in the room is what to do with the Harover properties, the buildings themselves. I'm sitting here looking at the stakeholder meeting on March 24th, and I'm looking, there were two groups that met that night. It was a considerable time. And I'm looking at the top 5 ideas for Group 1. I'm looking at the top 5 ideas for Group 2. And the top 5 ideas for Group 1, Tier 1, Number 1, they wanted this group, and I don't know who the members were, they wanted a community park / center / garden / playground. Their other request that tied was demolish existing buildings, develop a purpose-built rec center. Their second thing they wanted was a revenue-generating, no tax burden, tax-neutral, dedicated funding stream. If you look at Group 2's ideas, their number one thing they wanted was a pavilion, amphitheater, ice rink, and they wanted to host concerts. Tied for number 2 was Town Rec Park or county partnership, the food pantry, a community pool or clubhouse. So by looking at this, unless this was typed in error, neither group of the citizens that showed up that night wanted to keep the buildings. Now, I'm not saying they didn't want to, but if you look down, it was down the list. I think it's pretty well noted that the ARB wants to keep the buildings, at least one. The Planning Commission, as I recall, we took a field trip and it was unanimous we remove them. All I'm simply saying is, at some point, some council in Haymarket is going to have to make a decision, because the citizens, number one, are the people who we should be representing. I remember running for this seat, and it's been interesting to say the least. I think we would all agree. And I think we all, when we were running, said that we want the citizens of the town to be fairly represented rather than the few who always run their mouth the loudest. And that's the way it's been in this town for years. So with that said, I'm looking at what the citizens want. So it's time that we finally make a decision. Are we going to tear them both down? Are we going to tear one down? Or are we going to tear none of them down? Once we make that decision, then we can make a plan. We can have it conceptualized, drawn, and then we can figure out, okay, what's this plan going to cost? How are we incrementally going to execute the plan? But until we make a decision on those homes, we need to make a decision, because it's gone on way too long. And what are we going to do? Like the federal government, we're going to keep kicking the budget down for the next Congress to do? I mean, in essence, that's what we're doing on a small town level, because no one wants to make a decision. I implore you, we need to meet. We need to look at what the citizens have put on paper. We need to consider the ARB. We need to consider the Planning Commission. We need to consider council with whatever decision we make that is properly executed in total transparency, which we've done. But we need to make a decision. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cottle. I think there was one other comment I'm going to ask Mr. Henshaw. As our town manager, you kind of seen this process over the years now, and I think you might have had a comment that I wanted you to share with the council.
Well, the only thing I can say is that I believe that this was added to. I feel like you all had the need to add this to the agenda so you could get to some kind of ground. I think Councilman Cottle kind of summed up a little bit about it. I think you need to, I encourage you. The only thing I can do from a staff level is really make any kind of recommendation to you. I think all of you all have various different viewpoints. I think you need to get out on the table. I think you do have policies in place that it's okay for you all to maybe say, you know what, that was a policy that applied when, several years ago, but you need to look at the fact that what do those policies say. I'm mainly talking about your comprehensive plan with that regard. Other than that, I do believe Councilman Cottle has a point that you're at a point where you do need to make a decision. We spent a work session where we spent 5 hours, and of that time, you spent approximately an hour and a half or so talking about the master plan. You brought in a consultant and spent considerable dollars to have a expert who actually knows how to put together a plan, listen to all the consensus, and put together something that was a compromise for all. Essentially, where we're at is it seems like we can't get past that decision. I think that ultimately the council is at the point where you need to at least go from there. So then you can look at the merits, because that master plan also included some wonderful things that everybody said that they were looking for: a pavilion, an amphitheater. Maybe you weren't crazy about the way the entrance was, but these things are all in a master plan, and it's important to understand the planning process. We came up with a master plan for the town center We are now in the design phase. And so we've changed things that came out of that master plan, but for the most part, it gave us the precipice to keep moving forward. And that's what we're saying. Any decisions you ultimately make at this point is your all's decisions, but at the same time, it's not like a master plan locks you in stone. It's not cement. It gives you the opportunity to say, this is the general direction we're going in. So, Mr. Mayor, I went in a little different direction than you want me to, but I think these are things that I think you all need to understand. You all came together as a council. You all have to make a decision, but I think it's important to listen to what your policies say, or read what your policies are saying and calling you to do. Also to listen to the citizens as well. It's not an easy decision that you all have to make. No one would ever say it is. It's not a fun job sometimes what you are called to do and what you're all trying to achieve. But at this point, I think it's just for a matter of moving forward because you do have I think, a fairly significant product that could be a very good asset for this town.
All right. Okay. My last comments, let's see. I think we've kind of touched about everyone's had my notes here. The only thing wasn't mentioned, of course, was the Haymarket Gainesville Library that was open, which was very nice. We were represented by council and myself there for their grand opening, which was really nice to see. That's a vision that took many, many, many years to come, and it was nice to see that facility now open. And I think that's it. That's it for me tonight. So I'll entertain a motion, or actually, since we're just going to a continuation, we'll just go ahead and adjourn until Friday at 5 o'clock. All right. Thank you all. Thank you for your time.